All right, now today what we're going to talk about, I'm going to start out with just a little reminder about why I focus on gut health at least once a year here in this free group as well as in my membership group. The reason I do that, I'm all about beating inflammation. That's my number one. Hey, Lisa. And in 2024, I've become more and more and more passionate about helping mamas and myself lower insulin resistance, reverse prediabetes, even reverse type 2. Okay. And of course, that's tightly connected with inflammation. But also, gut health is also connected to all of that. Gut health and inflammation, they go hand in hand as well. And so it's really important. And as I mentioned last week, having really, really poor, messed up gut health was a huge part of my own personal journey and just part of my life and what's happened to me. So if you want to hear about that part, you can listen to last week's video. It's in the pinned announcements, the pinned feature post. It's on YouTube as well. And it went out in the email. So I hope you're on my email list, okay? So you can get that as well. So what I want to start out with here, though, is, we're all different. And so what happened with me and my gut health, you may be like, Lord have mercy, ain't never heard of that. Gut health does that? And I'm like, yes, it does. But you may have some different experiences. Good morning, Rhonda. So this is in the Gut Health Chat freebie that I posted about a week or two ago. And that is also in the pinned featured post. If you want to get the Gut Health freebie, there's a place where you can get that. So that's kind of what I'm reading from right now. But here are just a few. Here are just a few of the signs and symptoms of poor gut health, okay? And I want you to think about these because it's not only bloating or weight gain. It's not. There's lots of other things. So these things I'm about to read to you, these are not normal. No, well, they might be normal. Let me re-say that. The things I'm about to read to you are not healthy. They're not optimal. They shouldn't be something you're constantly dealing with. But like myself, maybe you are, 11, 12, 13, 14 years ago, some of these were my life and I didn't really even understand why. And it was really hard to figure out, but finally I did, like I mentioned last week. But the things I'm about to read off, these are signs and symptoms that your body is communicating to you that something's not right and you need to take care of that. Something's not right with your gut, with your inflammation, et cetera, stress management, all that stuff. It all connects. But this is your body telling you, hey girl, something ain't right. Let's do something different, okay? Constipation, but then conversely also constant diarrhea, constant fatigue, once or twice a week being worn out, that's different. But constant fatigue, depression, panic attacks, acid reflux, heartburn, digestive issues, abnormal cravings, food intolerances. Now, note I didn't say allergies, just intolerances, okay? Anxiety, chronic inflammation, excessive gas, excessive bloating, sleep disturbances and poor sleep, skin conditions, moodiness and irritability that's like ongoing, catching colds and every little sniffle that comes by all the time. Those are just a few of the signs and symptoms of poor gut health. Now, they can also be signs and symptoms of other things. And if you've ever heard me talk about inflammation, you may notice some similarities because they kind of do go together a little bit. And in the gut health guide, the freebie, part of that sheet where it talks about why gut health is so important to pay attention to, it asks you to list your 3, if you have 3 of those symptoms. If you only have 1, that's really great. But if it's a really big one like panic attacks, it's not so great. That was part of my problem. But it asks you to list your 3 symptoms that are negatively impacting your life in ways that are really concerning to you and really frustrating. That's your why. Okay? So I want you to think about those. That's a list. I know that I went through that kind of fast, but I want you to think about things that you're grappling with that may be on that list, and think about the 3 that you're most concerned about or most troubled by, and write those down and really consider, like, wow, this isn't the way it ought to be. I want to be healthier and function better and not be concerned about these things. These are all related to poor gut health. And the good news is that you really can turn that ship around. I have, and I can also tell you, just quite frankly, it can take time. It can take some time to do that, but you are worth that time. You are worth that investment of learning a little bit more about gut health and how to take really good care of it and how to really set yourself up well. You're worth it. The journey to heal your gut and then get to gut health maintenance like I am, it is so worth it. It is amazing the difference. And I've thought about this. I've posted about this a few times. Even the life of my family, my kids, has been greatly impacted by my gut healing because of my issues being panic attacks in the car and so much trouble with driving and things like that. And I know you may think, how does that have anything to do with gut health? Well, like I mentioned last week, if you didn't see that one, it's because serotonin is made in the gut, then sent to the brain. And so if your gut health is not well, if your gut is out of balance, then that little system there gets all broken up. It gets completely messed up. And so that's what happened to me. But with my kids, like, I've thought about, there are things, hey Debbie, there are things that my kids wouldn't have been able to do or go to or be involved in because mama couldn't have driven them. It just couldn't have happened, like, at all. And I mean, I don't mean out of town, I mean across town, okay? So I've thought about that, and I'm like, wow, I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful that the Lord led me to figuring that out a little bit. And I'll be honest with you, it was a terrible time to go through all of that for years, but also I'm thankful for it because it has made me much more empathetic. Or I never know if it's empathetic or sympathetic, whichever one. I've gone through it, so now I really feel for people who are struggling with that, but also anything on this list with gut health. It is frustrating and it's annoying and it's impactful. But I'm thankful for what I went through because it has made me, whichever word I'm supposed to say there, sympathetic, empathetic. Y'all tell me. But now I can tell you, it can get better. You can improve that. I know, like, with my issues that I have, it's still a little bubbly there. Okay. So I have to take care of my gut. I can't just say, oh, I'm healed, it's all gone. No, I'm in gut health maintenance. So I still do my fermented veggies and my kefir very regularly. I still do those things, and I make sure I get in plenty of fiber and from those fiber-rich prebiotic foods that we're focused on this week. Very important to do that. But I'm really glad that I can share that with y'all and tell you how important it is, but also that you can improve it. And it takes time, but along the way you'll have victories and you'll see improvement in that, okay? So I want you to take some time soon to think about your why it would be important for you using that list, okay? Now, here's what we're doing. So this week we're focused on prebiotic food. And so we went over that list a little bit there. And next week I want to kind of give you a preview. There will be graphics and I'll prepare you and all that kind of stuff. But next week we're going to focus on probiotic foods. And remember, probiotics are the ones that give you the good, healthy gut bacteria. And the prebiotics that we're eating this week feed it, okay? It's food for the good gut, guys. Food for the bad bacteria, sugar and inflammatories, okay? But this week we're eating all those healthy things. And next week we're going to talk about or focus on probiotic or fermented foods, okay? And so in your freebie guide, there's the fermented food, okay? That's in your free guide, so make sure you get that free guide before next week for sure. And I wanted to go over a little bit with you about that and tell you some brand names. I sadly don't have all the brand names because I didn't think ahead. I'm so sorry. I should have had them all on display and I forgot. But 3 brands of fermented veggies, which include pickles, sauerkraut, that's usually the 2 big ones, or beet kraut, which is that beautiful purple. It's so pretty. 3 brands that I regularly see at various grocery stores, and they don't all always sell every brand, but you should be able to find something, I think. I think you'll be able to find something. Wild Brine, that is so Southern. Wild Brine, that is one brand that I see at Sprouts and I've seen at Costco. Okay, now maybe not every single product they sell, but Wild Brine is one. Bubby's, you've probably heard of Bubby's Pickles, but they do have sauerkraut also. And then Cleveland Kitchen sells lightly fermented pickles and several different types of kraut. And I've seen that at Publix and Sprouts also. I don't go to a lot of different grocery stores. I just don't. So maybe even Aldi might sell some of that sometime. I'm not sure. But you can look those up. Wild Brine is the brand. Bubby's, Cleveland Kitchen. I kind of like to look things up if I don't know, so I can get a visual of what it looks like. So I have it in my brain when I go to the grocery store. But those are some brands to look for. Of course, you can make your own. I don't. But if you want to know how to make your own, we have a resident gut health fermented food expert in our group, Coach Deanne Nielsen. And she has a YouTube channel with all kind of demos and chats about fermenting and all that stuff. I don't think it's hard. I really don't think it's hard at all. I just don't do it yet. It's a goal. It's a goal for when we graduate everybody out, but not yet. Still got one more. So that's what you can do. Now, for the fermented veggies, if you're not used to them, start small. That would be true of any of the fermented probiotic rich food. You want to start small because you're going to be flooding your gut with good, healthy gut bacteria, which is great. But if you do too much at first, it can create some die-off, basically, of the bad guys. And then you might have like bloating, and you might have like temporary, but still, who wants that? So just be aware to start small and work your way up slowly. For fermented veggies, they're so rich in probiotics and also prebiotics, that a little bit there. So you just need a couple of tablespoons. 1 or 2 tablespoons a day is all you really need. You could do it at every meal if you want to. Some health experts recommend that for like optimal, but for our challenge, it's just once a day. And in fact, for our challenge, you have options. You could do fermented veggies, just couple of tablespoons, okay, at some point. You could even divide it up and do a tablespoon at lunch and a tablespoon at dinner. That's fine. Or for our challenge, you could do kefir. And if you make it, you can do water kefir, non-dairy kefir, or dairy kefir, which is usually what you find. You can do any of those. And for our challenge, we're just going to have a 1/4 cup minimum. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but you will get lots of great probiotics in just 1/4 of a cup. And I wanted to kind of go lower just in case you're not used to it. If you are, then I do encourage you to maybe have a little more for sure. It's really great. But with the kefir, I did share it, right? I believe I shared my Easy Kefir video that's on YouTube with the little Easy Kefir packets. That is so easy. Literally, that is where I would start if I were, if I could start over with how I did it, I would probably start there on making it. It's so easy. And it's really great because you can have a little bit better control over how much kefir you end up collecting. Because that's kind of one of the number one complaints that people say about making homemade kefir with the traditional grains is that they start getting overrun with kefir, because those grains have to be fed or you have to store them away, and then that's a whole nother discussion. But with the Easy Kefir packets, you have a little more control over how often you make it, and how much, and things like that, okay? On your sheet that's in that freebie, it talks about some tips of enjoying these things. Obviously, with kefir, you can, and I've posted about this before, you can mix it into creamy things, like creamy dressings, creamy dips. You could mix it into yogurt or cottage cheese. It's going to blend in there really well and just give those foods a boost. Yes, even ranch, bottled salad dressing, you know, a lot of times we add a little water to thin it out. Add some kefir and thin it out and give that salad dressing a nice little boost that it probably definitely needs, right? So you can do that. And again, we'll shoot for 1/4 cup. Now, last of all on our fermented foods that we're going to talk about is kombucha. And kombucha is tricky because by nature, kombucha is going to be pretty carby, pretty sugary. So you really have to be careful with that one. It's not a bad option, but I know, Heather, you just make me so happy when you say that. So Heather is talking about, I have a recipe on my website, which my website's under maintenance right this minute, but it'll be up soon. But I have a recipe on my website that's for a protein shake mix, but instead of it being the typical chocolate that a lot of us tend to grab, this one is for, this one is like more of a citrus light, non-chocolate flavor, and it pairs really well with berries, of course, but also with kefir. I mean, I do make my kefir shakes with chocolate, but honestly, kefir pairs really well with like a lemon flavor, orange flavor, berries. It really shines when you pair kefir with something kind of like that. It tastes so much better. Oh, I'm so excited about this. And I forgot all about that. Wow. That's awesome. Cindy's saying that it was years ago at one of our admin retreats, we talked about kefir making and she got back to doing it. Oh, that's awesome. It's so easy. Even the kefir grains and making kefir is super easy. The little easy kefir packets that I have that video about that I shared, I'm pretty sure I shared it, right? Crazy easy. Anyway, on the kombucha though, I want y'all to be careful with that. I don't want to say no, you can't, because some of y'all are making it, and that's probably a little bit better because you have greater control and you know what's going in it. Just be mindful of kombucha. It is sugary. Like, it's just literally got sugar in it. Okay, so be careful about that. And I want you to limit that to 1/4 cup for sure. And And when you have your 1/4 cup, definitely have that like as part of a meal, like with your meal with some food, not standing alone. And you can certainly divide that up over the day if you want. If you just want to take a swig, if you want to take a couple of swigs with each meal, that would probably work just fine also. But it is fun. The one that I see that seems to be a little less sugar is the Synergy brand, and they have 2 that have 12 grams of sugar per bottle, which is a lot. But I mean, if you divide that bottle into 4 servings, then you're only getting about 3 grams of sugar per time. Okay, so it's not too bad. Just definitely have it with food. The Synergy brand, though, it's not every one of theirs. They have the Trilogy. I think that's the name of it. Their Trilogy option is lower sugar, and then there's another one. Maybe it's the ginger berry. Don't quote me on that one. There's one other one that's only 12 grams, so it's not too bad. So just be mindful of that. Making kombucha is also easy, but it's one of those things where you don't do it every day, so it's easy to forget about it. And then next thing you know, you have vinegar, which is fine. But it's handy to use kombucha. You can use that in place of apple cider vinegar in some recipes, like for dressings or drinks or whatever. So you can use it in smaller amounts, and that might be wiser, honestly, and definitely use it along with food. Okay, Linda, let's talk about these clumpy lumps. It does seem, so it's going to get lumpier two ways it can get lumpy that I know of. I mean, it can get kind of thick for sure. The more fat that the milk has, the more clumpy it might get, maybe. But usually it's just really thick. And you can use, you can use 1%, 2% whole milk. It's not recommended to use store-bought organic, unfortunately, because of the ultra pasteurization that store-bought organic. Now, obviously, if you can get raw milk, go for it. But if it over ferments, if it over processes, it will separate and get real kind of clumpy that way. Now, but that sometimes happens to people in the summer, because when it gets warmer in the house, then your kefir, it's curds and whey. That's what it is. And the curds and whey will separate more and more because it's warmer. So it's kind of over fermenting. That is not really a problem. You can still use it. You can shake it up or pour it in the blender and use it. Just make sure you take the grains out. And what you can know, typically we say that when you ferment, when you're making kefir, we usually say it's about a 24-hour process, but that's not always true in the summer or in the warmer months. It might take less time because, the warmth in the house just kind of speeds that process up a little bit. And so, okay, so what I do, well, Rita, what I do, and if this helps you with because I get it, on the fermented Bubby's pickles, I sprinkle THM Super Sweet on top to kind of cut that flavor, if that works for you. And then I would say try if you can try the Lifeway brand unsweetened plain kefir. It's very smooth. It might be, I'll come back to that, Linda. It's very smooth, and you can just do and this is what I did in the beginning myself. I would do 1/4 a cup of you could do the Lifeway kefir, and then do 3/4 a cup of whatever, almond milk, cashew milk, vanilla extract in there, some on-plan sweetener, and then stir that up, and it's you don't even really taste the kefir at that point. Basically hide it. Or like I said, you could hide it in ranch dressings, tartar sauce, yogurt, cottage cheese, anything like that that's kind of creamy, sour cream. I've done that because I got a couple of kids over here that don't like kefir, so I'll put it into the sour cream tub and mix it in, or the yogurt tub and mix it in. So I would suggest that. And so back to Linda, yeah, I think maybe it's over fermenting. And so usually what happens is at the bottom of your jar, the bottom will start having the clear whey a little bit. And when that happens, when you see that, that means it's done. It's way done, and you can stop. Even if it's not been 24 hours, that means it's done. And at that point, you can scoop the grains out, stick that jar in the fridge, and then get your grains going with some fresh milk or whatever you're using. If it's non-dairy, you might be using something else, okay? So I hope that helps a little bit. Make sure you get that tip sheet, and y'all keep sharing your tips too, because my little brain just I have my few little things here on this sheet, but y'all may have some way better thinking outside the box tips for sure. Just keep in mind, this is on the sheet too, keep in mind, fermented pickles will not have vinegar listed as an ingredient. So for example, I know Clausen's is one, but there's another brand that has a pickle person on the thing. I can't remember what that's called. But Clausen's are refrigerated pickles, but they are not fermented. I mean, they are absolutely delicious and you can totally enjoy them, but they're not fermented, okay? Because they use vinegar. And so what you want to look for on your fermented veggies and pickles is that there's no vinegar listed in the ingredients, and that's how you'll know that they're actually fermented, okay? But they will be in the refrigerated sections. They need to be refrigerated, but like most fermented foods, they have a long shelf life, a really long shelf life. So they're a great vegetizer. It's a great way to start your meal if you want. I sometimes do that with the pickle. Now kraut, I'm not there on the kraut. Now kraut needs to be eaten with my meal. I'm not there yet where I can just do a fork full of kraut and be like, oh, that was a great vegetizer. I am not there. But pickle, yes, I can do that. And make sure that you don't heat any of these foods. I love some good like kielbasa sausage and kraut. That's a delicious, like I loves that. But if I'm going to have like sausage and kraut that's heated up, I'm not buying fermented kraut. I'm just going to buy the sauerkraut that's not fermented, because I'm not going to waste my money. Because once you heat up the fermented food, you've killed the probiotics. Okay, so there's different brands. I can't think of the name. Boar's Head might be one. They may have kraut now that I think about it. But there's different brands that have like kraut that's delicious, but it's not fermented. You can still enjoy that. That's not a problem. That's the kind you would want to get if you're going to heat it up with some good, like, put kraut on a hot dog. Oh, that sounds good. I love kraut dogs. But you don't want to heat up your fermented foods. Kefir, kombucha, fermented veggie. You don't want to heat that up. I have used kefir in place of almond milk in some baking, which sounds crazy. And the only reason I did that is because I got overrun. And I had like 7 mason jars of kefir in my fridge. And I was like, oh my gosh, I hate to throw this out. But I have used it in place of nut milk in baked goods before, just because I didn't want to go to waste. And when I do that, I know that I'm killing the probiotics, but it's still a low carb, healthy in place of nut milk option. So I hope that wasn't confusing. I hope that was helpful. I didn't put that note on here, but we don't want to heat these things at all. We want to eat them cold. So hope that was helpful. I'll have some posts for next week explaining, again, going back over, what foods we're doing for next week and how much. I'll get that posted. I'll probably get that announcement posted at least by Friday so that you can maybe go to the store if you need to, or get whatever you might need for that. Okay. All right, ladies. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for participating in the free challenge. This week is probably easier than next week, I know, for many of you. So, but I want you to participate. I want you to challenge yourself to maybe start dipping your toe into these wonderful, literally life-giving foods that we're going to be focused on next week. I'm keeping the amount small so that you can get your toes wet and dip into that a little bit. And then lastly, again, make sure you get this gut health freebie that's in the pinned featured post at the top of our group. And I hope this challenge is fun for you. Like I said, I won't be going live next week because I'll be out of town, but I will go live on Wednesday the 21st, and we'll have our winners. We'll have our finalists and our winners, and we'll kind of wrap up talking about gut health a little bit. All right? All right. Bye-bye, ladies. Thank you for joining me.